Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cast episode 92. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
How you doing, boys?
Yeah.
Well, we're here, Steve. I think that's probably the most we could offer you.
It's Monday night, we've turned up, and there's things to talk about. I think that's about as much as we can say.
We're here in body, but maybe not in spirit, is what you're suggesting?
No, the spirit is willing. It's half an hour ago. I wasn't sure we were going to get going, to be honest.
It's true.
Yeah. The spirit is willing, the tech is weak this time.
Yeah. And the two of you, we were about to start, the two of you decided to go get yourself a cup of tea.
It's important, man.
Well, true.
Wars were won on cups of tea, Steve.
Bridges were built
True.
on cups of tea. I'm on the decaf, though, so if I have a proper cup of tea tonight, if this time of night, I won't sleep. I've hit that age now. It's not good.
I'm the same. It's basically no caffeine after 3 p.m. now for me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Thankfully, that hasn't hit me yet. I think I've got a couple of years on you, boys. I'm still on the caffeinated tea at 10 at night. Espresso just hit the edge off.
Jesus, if I had an espresso at 10 at night, I would not sleep at all. I'd need 4 pints of beer just to, smooth, even it out. Maybe 6 pints.
Oh. Has anyone actually played any board games since we last podcasted? Because I got to admit, we're going to do a tabletop gaming podcast, and I've not actually played anything on the tabletop since before we last recorded.
That is a poor example, Mr. Tudor.
It is.
You're supposed to be our glorious leader, setting an example for everyone.
Well, I've played some RPGs.
Ooh.
Does that count? Remember, we have set up and started our Forbidden Lands campaign. We haven't kind of got hit the ground running quite yet. We've done character
It was a
creation.
casual saunter, that one, wasn't it?
Well, we've done character creation. We've poked at the rules, done the exploration rules and done the combat rules. And then I think next session it's going to start in earnest.
Yes, damn right it is. I can't wait to get a bit murdery.
And people accuse us of being slow with playing, don't we?
I think we prefer to fully explore the options in front of us.
Glacial would be faster than us at sometimes, I think.
That's probably fair, yes. I've played a couple of board games. What have I played? Dark Domains, which is kind of fun. And I've been playing Viscounts as well, of the West Kingdom. And losing at both of them, I might add.
See, all I've managed to do is play Dark Souls 1 and 2 video games. I thought I'd put this lockdown to good use and finally get around and complete Dark Souls. And then yesterday, in fact, I completed Dark Souls 2.
Ooh.
So,
I haven't played any of them.
They're an acquired taste. I mean, I think they're absolutely brilliant. But I can understand if you played them and went, nope, I'm not touching this with a barge pole ever again.
It's not even that. I've just never played them. None of them. None of the Soulsborne games.
Well, they're notoriously difficult, which is one thing, which I'd say they are difficult, but once you start to learn kind of why it's difficult, it kind of clicks into place, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
But, well, I mean, I say that, but Amanda told me off the amount of swearing that was coming out from the living room the other night. And I didn't even realise I was doing it.
Yeah, I can get like that sometimes. If I'm playing Doom or something on a crazy hard difficulty level and I'm just getting eviscerated left, right and centre because the Marine won't jump or shoot or something like that, or it gets stuck on a piece of scenery.
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
Argh!
The amount of times you think you've rolled out of the way of an attack and all you've done is rolled into a statue which has blocked the roll and this zombie's axe goes and kills you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Oh, I remember those days. Being able to sit down with a console pad in hand. Now I have to sit there and think about buying a Switch just because I can have cartoon graphics for the boy.
You mean a Nintendo Switch, not a network routing switch?
I'm not going to buy a 4-gang light switch, mate, and sit and stare at it. No.
Well, it could be a networking switch.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's got flashing lights, I suppose, so therefore it beats the 4-gang switch. But
you are simple. It might entertain you.
Well, you could sit and stare at it for a while, I suppose, look for patterns in it.
I have been tempted by a Switch. When it first came out, I thought, that looks nice, but there's like 3 games for it that anyone cares about, and it's the usual staple of Mario, Zelda, and one other.
I think there's a hell of a lot more games out for it now.
Oh,
there's loads.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years since I looked at it.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
I want to play Bomberman again. Somebody mentioned Bomberman to me the other day, and I went, I really want to play Bomberman now.
Yeah, but you need like 5 people for that, don't you, really, to make it properly fun.
Well, look, we're all locked up, right?
That's true.
That's all I'm saying. We all get on there. A bit of Ultimate Bomberman.
I've got it on PS3, so if we can go on the internet and do that, we could probably manage a game of that.
We're gonna have to try Among Us at some point and Project Winter.
Yeah, is that the one on Steam?
Yeah, so Among Us is the one that's like £3, and it's basically like your old your traitor board games, like your your Battlestar Galactica and your Dead of Winter, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Basically, that boiled down into a video game. So one person's a traitor and they've got to go around and kill everyone else, while everyone else has to try and repair the ship.
That sounds brilliant. When do we play that?
We pause the podcast.
It might give us something to talk about if we went and played that now and came back. Nobody would know.
I'm sure the listeners will wait.
Actually, I've got a bit of late news that relates to that.
Breaking
No, it's
news.
late. Not breaking. It's no. I'm not going to even remotely say it's breaking. This is from like 3 weeks ago. I just forgot to mention it 3 weeks ago. Fantasy Flight Games have announced that they're actually going to do a reprint of Battlestar Galactica.
I'd heard this, but aren't they retheming it?
But they're going to retheme it, yes. Because Battlestar Galactica, I mean, how many years ago was that? Like 15 years ago now or something daft like that.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the TV series or the board game, I suppose it would probably
The original, the TV series, which the board game is based on.
Yeah.
The remaked one?
Yeah, the remade one.
So I was still living with John at the time, so it must have been near on 12, 13 years ago.
It's got to be about 2005, because I think it's not long after I moved to Malvern.
Sounds
not
about
far
right.
away from that.
It's not far away from that. Well, I mean, you haven't even played this, have you, Sid? So there is this board game. It's a massive, up to 6-player monstrosity. It's going to take you like 3 hours, 4 hours to play, which is Battlestar Galactica, and it is just the TV series in board game form.
Awesome. Is this the one with all the little minis in it?
No.
It's got some minis. It depends which version you've got. You can get the little models for the base stars and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's the one I've seen some pictures of, maybe.
But basically, one person is, possibly one person, possibly more than one person is a Cylon, but you don't know who's a Cylon who isn't. Yeah, you don't know who's a Cylon and who isn't. And the aim of the game is to survive and jump to Earth. So you've got to do that. But at the same time, the Cylon is trying to hamper things and just screw up everyone else. While at the same time, you're just constantly being attacked by Cylons.
Awesome.
It's a really good game.
Apparently, it's going to be rethemed in their Arkham Horror Files setting, and it's going to be like an Arctic explorer ship, so it's going to take quite a bit of influence from the Mountains of Madness.
Ooh.
That sounds really good.
Ooh, a bit of interest peaking going on now, Mr. Tudor.
Yeah.
As long as you promise me that the boxing episode from season 3 doesn't get remade into it. Because if that happens, we will have a falling out.
I've not seen that far into it yet. Is it a bad episode?
It's the worst episode.
Is it? Was this at the height of the writers' strike?
It was the height of the writer's strike, and it was rehash material with an irrelevant boxing match going on for no readily apparent reason. It was awful.
Was
absolutely awful.
What's the chops like boxing?
Oh, well, all of them were boxing. I can't even remember if it was Fat Apollo or Thin Apollo at the time, but one of the Apollos was fighting. And it was the whole third season was awful. Starbuck, yeah. The whole third season was awful, but that one episode stood out as the worst episode of that show.
Oh goodness. Ever. Oh wow, okay. See, the problem is, as much as I would like to buy this game, if it is literally just a reskin of Battlestar, I've got Battlestar and all of the expansions for it, which is nice, but I do like
it's probably going to be the same game, but what it's probably going to be is like a paring down, because, the thing about Battlestar with expansions is it's modular, so you've got to choose which are the best bits and which are the bits to cut.
Yeah.
And I can imagine if they do this, you could basically take everything, all the best bits out of those 4 boxes. Is it 4 boxes or 3?
It's 4 boxes in total, so the main box and 3 expansions.
You could take everything out of those 4 boxes and just pare it down into one perfect version of that.
See, that would be quite nice. I assume essentially what it'll be is Great Old One is the the Cylon fleet.
Or the elder things or whatever it is attacking your ship as it makes its way through the Arctic Oceans. And
you've got Dagon or whatever mooching about underneath the water. And then you've got cultist amongst you, but you don't know who it is, I assume.
That's probably the way it's going to go, isn't it?
Yeah. Does sound good.
That sounds good.
Sounds like good fun. Everything you said there sounds like I want to play it.
Take my money.
I do not own Battlestar Galactica either. I never got round to buying it because I always used to play it with Az, and because Az had the entire thing and all the expansions, and he would purposely organise a game every so many months kind of thing. So right, we actually called it the Scottish game in the end because every time we tried to organise a game of it, it didn't work. I stopped. Either I couldn't make it, or he couldn't make it, or something happened, or the pub flooded, or something daft like that.
Yeah.
So we ended up nicknaming it the Scottish game. So because we said if we actually said we're going to play Battlestar, something will go wrong. So we're now going to say we'll play the Scottish game tonight.
Excellent. The last time I played it with Alora and Luke from the Worcester Board Gaming and a couple of his friends and family members, and that game took something like 4.5 hours because there were...
It's not a short game.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's a proper Fantasy Flight game. It's not a short game. It's an
brilliant.
Afternoon.
I loved it, but Alora was getting quite stressed towards it. It's like, for God's sake, just come on and hurry up. Stop discussing. But the discussion is part of the game. But it's brilliant.
Carrying on the theme of Lovecraftian horror, Free League did a little a video presentation the other day, and I've got to admit, I don't tend to watch these things, but they were announcing something about the next news article, and I kind of thought, I'll watch this. And they just dropped this random bombshell about they're going to do a new RPG based on H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu. Where you say, well, we've already got that, it's called Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
But what this is going to be is it's going to be a cosmic horror game based on the Alien system, so using the stress system from Alien rather than insanity from Call of Cthulhu. And their aim is to go a bit less pulpy, because Call of Cthulhu is, well, we mentioned Arkham Horror. I mean, my edition of Arkham Horror actually says Arkham Horror, a Call of Cthulhu game.
Yes.
So, it's a bit Indiana Jones, really, which is a bit pulpy rather than cosmic horror. Apparently, they winded it more towards the actual kind of cosmic horror, unspeakable entities kind of thing, and toning down the pulp. But it's also going to have these Alien-style cinematic scenarios as well.
Oh, hello. Do you know what? Free League just can't do anything wrong right now, can they?
No.
No. I mean, I've already given them a lot of money in the last couple of weeks for 3 of their for their game systems. I'm still waiting for that to turn up, actually. It's a week and a half now. God damn it.
I've not got mine either yet, so you're not alone.
They're busy. They must be busy.
I think they had a lot of orders, yeah.
Yeah, because they did a 50% discount on Black Friday for some of the for the main core book. So yeah, I hit that hard.
Well, speaking of which, the last one is the reason in which I was watching this video is because pre-orders are now up for the Alien Colonial Marines operational guide.
I will be buying that after this podcast is finished.
I was actually going to suggest you don't.
Oh.
Not because I don't think it's going to be an awesome product, which I think it is, but it sounds like it's mostly missions.
Oh.
Ooh. So it's going to have some extra material in there for playing. So it's going to have some bit of fluff about the Colonial Marines. There's going to be extended rules for creating Marines. So you've got extra rules for professions and things like that. There's going to be some extra war gear, that kind of stuff. Yeah,
awesome.
Okay.
Does it have RPGs that actually explode now?
Possibly. But what's interesting is it's going to have 6 missions, and they can be played as a campaign in any order with like a final showdown mission.
Nice.
So what this sounds like is, we mentioned Forbidden Lands, which we just started playing. They released, it was on Kickstarter, I think, the last year, and I've got the PDF of it. The Bitter Reach, which is the second campaign for Forbidden Lands.
Right.
And what that basically does is exactly the same thing. So the first half of the book is extra characters, extra spells, extra background, and then the second half of the book is this campaign structure, which doesn't say, right, you do A, B, C, D, and E. It's like, here's some missions and here's the end. It sounds like this is going the same way. So it depends whether you want all the extra fluff and stuff to make extra interesting Marines or not, Andy.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
He needs to complete his set now.
Also, it means I could run a game. It means if I ran a game, you could play as a Marine and get the shit kicked out of you instead of kicking the shit out of us. Payback, bitch. Because do you not find, as a massively deep rabbit hole, I'm going to throw us down now, that you find if when you'll give it, I mean, we'll have some more chat later, I'm sure, about this kind of stuff, but do you not find as when you're a DM, you want to play in the game as well?
Ooh, that's a weird one, because I know what's going to happen. I know what's all set in the world. So in a weird way, I've got to the point where I'm interested to see what your reaction's going to be to these things.
Oh, okay.
But I know what you mean. I just don't think... I think I've trained myself over the years to not think like that.
Okay. I suppose what I mean is more like... I mean, because I'm probably going to be running Curse of Strahd at some point in the far distant future once we've got all of this stuff out of our system. And I would both want to DM it, which I'm going to do, but also want to play in it because it sounds like a really good adventure.
Yeah, but I think that's the way you pick a good adventure, though.
True.
Yeah, you want one you want. I know it sounds a bit weird. You want one you want to play in because that gets you excited for it. Whereas, look at the ones I want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to run Out of the Abyss, which is an Underdark campaign, and I want to run Realm of the Frost Maiden, which is a frozen horror campaign. It's like...
want to play
there's a trend here.
Yes. But yes, I would like all the Marine stuff, because it would just be pretty cool, and I think Sid would probably enjoy it too, because he seems to have taken to the Marine side of things.
Oh, I loved it. I think the Marines added a whole bit of flavour that was really welcome. I think it's because you've got 3 enemies now. You've got other people, whether it be other factions, just random punters floating around, and you've got xenomorphs to fight against. I think that adds a nice little bit of flavour. And it was more team-based as well, which was nice. We weren't all trying to just shiv each other in the back for whatever reason to get an extra few bucks or something.
So my understanding is this will be you make your own characters. So some more traditional campaigns. It's using the traditional campaign rules.
Yes, okay.
So you'll make your own Marines using all those expanded rules, and then you'll use the experience and the agenda system that's in the campaign rather than thematic. So it'd be something slightly different to what we've already been done before.
Okay, that's cool.
Is that going to mean that we'll have to potentially spin up new characters all by ourselves when we get squashed?
Yes. It also means you're going to get more attached to your character because you've generated it. So it's going to make it even harsher when you get squished.
I don't know. This is my fear for Forbidden Lands. I think it's one of the first questions I actually asked as we started the Forbidden Lands. How much am I going to have to get attached to this guy?
I do love that in Forbidden Lands, though, you get a little stickers to put on the map to say where you've explored, and you get a plethora of gravestones to put on the map.
You might as well just write Kara's name on one of them and stick it down. She's not going to last there in the next session, I reckon. Based on my track record with Alien.
I guess it also depends on how stabby I get.
Well, at the moment, what I find, this is completely off topic of what we're going to talk about. I know we've only played 2 sessions, but what I love about it is you start with nothing.
Yeah.
One of the things about D&D is you start with armour, weapons, a bag full of gold, and basically you look at the things you can buy and kind of go, well, I've got everything I need. This, you've all basically got a pointy stick.
It is,
it's
true.
That's it.
Yeah, the clothes on your back and that's it,
Yeah, you've got no armour, no food, no torches.
Well, it's the other little subtleties as well. Like, I hadn't realised as I was reading through the book properly the other day that if I hadn't bought a quiver as one of my starting articles, trade goods, I would have ended up carrying arrows in my hands. It's like, do you know what? This is good. This is important. You shouldn't just be given a whole load of stuff and just expected that you've packed it down your boot leg or something like that.
You need to earn it.
You got to earn it. You got to work for it.
I mean, thinking back to that last session, what did we actually achieve? We set up camp. We walked to a town.
We didn't make it to the town, did we?
Oh,
no, you haven't made it to the town.
No, we haven't. Okay, there you go. We walked across a field. That's ultimately what we did. 2.5 hours took us to cross a field.
You walked across the field and got lost on the way and wandered into a den of wolves was the problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you introduced the fact that we could have ran away mechanic, which would have been quite handy, I think.
Well, that was the whole point of that session, just to tease the rules in and just,
I think it achieved all of those aims.
Yeah, exactly. So we can go into the next session with our eyes wide open.
Yes. Well,
yes.
should we try and talk about some games?
Yes, let's.
We should.
Well, we mentioned, was it last time, time before, that we have a massive, massive list, thankfully, that we played ages ago before we got locked down. Unfortunately, we seem to have gone through most of that list now.
Bloody lockdown.
However,
we were told the 2nd of December it would all end, but no.
No. It was all...
Bloody 2.
It was teased in front of us and then snatched away. Now, something that you and I played more recently was, and this is our kind of twice-yearly game that you and I play, and you annoyingly keep winning by the skin of your bloody teeth, is Star Wars Rebellion.
Yes. Now, we didn't, I must say, we tried to play this this was our last game together before lockdown kicked in. So this is that Saturday afternoon when Boris then announced lockdown on the Saturday evening. And we didn't quite manage to get a full game in. We got like 3/4 of the way through and it was on a bloody knife edge still.
It really was.
But what was interesting is this is the first time we played it with the expansion, which basically... So, for those that don't know, Star Wars Rebellion is, quite frankly, an utterly fantastic board game. It's supposed to be 2 to 4 players, but it's really a 2-player game. And basically what this is it's Star Wars in one game. So at the beginning of the game, there's a rebel base that's hidden, and the Imperials are about to finish building the Death Star. And that's it. Have at it.
Yeah, go hog wild.
You've got an entire galaxy in front of you. You can try and send Darth Vader to go capture Luke. You can go send a fleet to Yavin and just bombard it, or you can try and build Death Stars and multiple Death Stars and try and blow up multiple planets. The whole way in which it works is it's quite asymmetric. So Imperial player will win if they either destroy the planet which got the Imperial base on, the Rebel base on, sorry, or land troops on the Rebel base. Now the Rebels win. I basically got like a little timer. So what it basically is the whole idea is if the Rebels just can keep the momentum up, they'll know they'll get an uprising and the popularity will get with them. So the more evil stuff the Empire do, which is supposed to represent how long the game goes for, the more like the sympathy for the rebellion quest goes up. So you've got a little tiny marker on the turn tracker, which as the Rebel player completes certain missions goes down the board, so it goes down further down the turn tracker. And if at any point the 2 turn trackers meet, then the Rebels have won. So what you've got is this really brilliant kind of cat and mouse game where the Rebels want to try and complete these missions, which involve sticking their head above the parapet kind of thing. Or at the same time, they want to keep their head very quiet and not make it look like there's a particular force around, I don't know, Dagobah or something like that. Or I'm not amassing a fleet just outside Hoth for no reason whatsoever.
No, nothing to see here.
Well, at the same time, the Imperial is like, I'm just going to try and destroy everyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Give me my superstar destroyer. Wallop.
Yes.
Right then. Who's in for a kicking? Now,
we mentioned about FFG games earlier. This is a proper FFG behemoth. I mean, it's got 2 boards in it, which means it takes up the entire table. This game does, which is this beautiful map of Star Wars galaxy, and you're looking at 4 hours to play it properly. I mean, you can squeeze in the game in 3. I think we managed to do it in the past, but you want to allow that 4th hour just to give you a bit of breathing room. But it kind of like tells your own story. Like I think what happened in the last one, did you capture Princess Leia and turn her to the dark side?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, that was it. So you captured Princess Leia. I think I managed to get Han to go and rescue her. Oh no, you captured somebody else and Han rescued them,
yes.
And then you went and captured Leia and turned her to the dark side. So you basically got another person. You got Dark Leia was going around doing all your missions.
Yep,
for
it was
you.
great. I basically had to sack half my staff because I captured that many of your crew.
Half the Imperial structure got demoted when Leia turned up.
She's like, right, I'm the general now. Get out of here. Move it along. Step aside, Junior. Yes, and I still couldn't find you. But then again, we did run out of time, and it was on a an annoying knife edge because I'd pretty much charted most of the planets, but not quite enough that I could make a sensible decision. I just needed one more round.
Yeah.
But that would have meant you could have done a mission. I might not have found you, and they say the game can turn on a knife edge. It's horrendous.
It's really annoying as well because there's a point where you get these mission cards and you can kind of one of the missions you can send, and it's best to send Obi-Wan on if you've got him, is makes you be able to look at this deck and like put one at the bottom, because basically the cards get better as you get through the deck, which ramps up and boils up the tension. And I annoyingly got rid of the mission, which was destroy the Death Star, because you hadn't bloody built one. And then all of a sudden, you popped out this bloody Death Star from nowhere. It was like, oh, you had like some kind of accelerated build project.
Yes.
It's like, oh my god, this Death Star. I could have actually won the game if I'd have kept that card in my hand, but I didn't because I thought it was never going to happen.
And it did. And I didn't actually get to blow a planet up, though, sadly.
No. Now, what we were doing is we're playing with the expansion, which is all based on Rogue One. So the Rogue One movie, it basically takes a lot of influence from that. Because of the film, because the game is supposed to be set, kind of core trilogy era. What it does is it adds a few extra units to balance out the units a bit more and takes inspiration from Rogue One. So it adds in the little flappy ties, which means they can go in space and on ground, whereas other units can't. It adds like rocket troops. It adds a few more ground unit options and a few more base options. It adds a different selection of mission cards, which is quite interesting. So what you can do is you can tailor the deck just before you begin to give you some variety, which were both good things. But it also changes the combat. And I heard a lot of people say the combat was better in the expansion, but I wasn't convinced.
No, neither was I. We both sort of looked at it and went, I definitely prefer the original version, because it was a bit too faffy and a bit too weak, and it's like, no, just roll dice, see who dies, next person. That's more fun.
Well, no, that was the problem. That was the problem with what the expansion was. Because the original one, if you rolled a particular die face, you could use that to play action cards, which allowed you to destroy units or bombing runs or air support. What this new version did is this new version gave you some cards at the beginning and went, right, you now get to play them in this kind of rock, paper, scissors system, which was a bit clumsy. And then you just rolled dice until someone died. It was like,
No, I don't like that.
I mean, that's an oversimplification of it before anyone says that's not how it works, Steve. Yeah. But it didn't seem. I mean, you had the way the old cards worked. The combat system in it was not the strong point, and you could probably play an entire game of that without actually doing much combat, potentially.
Especially if you've got a Death Star roaming around. Blammo, blammo,
Yes.
blammo. That's not combat, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, Death Star's bloody dangerous.
Brilliant. Especially coupled with a superstar destroyer. But yeah, so I mean, we both really love Rebellion, but yeah, a little bit lukewarm on the expansion.
Yeah, I think it's a bit. Well, as we were saying earlier about the Battlestar Galactica expansions, I think you need to work out which bits to keep in and which bits to prune out.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that new combat was one to keep.
Agreed. As we had so many questions last time, we didn't get to answer them all. We're going to roll them over. So it actually gives us something to talk about. We did get a lot of questions last time when Steve put out the call. It's like half the board gaming fraternity just went, right, here's a bunch of questions. So we've got literally 2 pages of the bloody things last time. We got through about 3 of them.
And then what's more is we had a couple more questions coming off the back of what happened in the last episode as well.
So yes, lots of things to answer here. So brace yourselves. Let's rustle through this sack.
Christ. Fucking loads.
Exactly, I know. So we've had, based on our increased RPG playing over the last few months, we've had a few questions from Ben Hopper and Craig Haggart, and actually with Derek Neal as well, who's actually one of our gaming crew, as is Ben, and asking essentially along the lines of what are the more accessible RPGs for the least experienced players and even GMs out there. So things like, do you want is it lighter rule set? Where do you start? What's it like to play online? How do you get started? Can you recommend some systems for the sort of the beginner RPG enthusiasts?
Ooh, there's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? So Ben's asking for accessible RPGs, and Craig's asking a very similar question, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best RPG, especially given the current restrictions of gaming group, and what's best for beginners?
Oof.
I always say the first thing you need to do is be wanting to play the game itself to begin with, if that makes sense. So we mentioned Forbidden Lands. You might think Forbidden Lands sounds like an interesting, an easy game to get in with. It's quite rules-like compared to some of the other games. But if no one's into gritty exploration fantasy, everyone wants to play Star Wars, then don't play a gritty fantasy game. If everyone wants to play D&D, go play D&D. You know, you'll get more buy-in if people are interested in the setting.
I would agree. Although I think it's probably worth saying, I don't know if we've actually said this before, we probably have, is that whilst D&D is extremely well known and very popular, it's not the most accessible RPG.
We have, well, this is where it comes a bit weird with D&D, because I think rules-wise, and I have said this a few times in the podcast before, I think rules-wise D&D is quite complex. It's not the most complex, and it's probably the most, with the exception of the basic editions from in years gone by, it's the most accessible version. But there's a lot to take in there, and it also loads a lot of that on your players.
Yes.
Because a lot of what D&D is what the players can do, which break the rules, if that makes sense. You've got the basic rules, and then your players have got all these skills, spells, abilities, and that, which add to the rules or break them or things like that. And it puts a lot of onus on the players. However, D&D is the best supported RPG out there. If you have a rules question, there's about 20 places you can go on the internet to find an answer to that question. You might not always get the right answer.
That's true, actually, yes.
But for things like RPG, for advice and rules and watching playthroughs or watching guides on how to play, it's the best supported by a long shot.
Yes, and obviously there's a lot of videos like Matthew Mercer and others will give you tips on how to be a better GM and the things to take into account. And, you know, I mean, ultimately, in any gaming system, it's also true that the more you play, the better you get. It's all about experience, you know. When players start to break the DM, like Sid and I have a small habit of doing, Steve has now played with us enough to realise, okay, this is how I handle this situation, and it's a lot smoother, whereas obviously when we first started playing, you're like, oh shit, what the hell do I do with this? So that just comes with experience, and I don't think you can teach that other than to say, don't worry if you get a rule wrong. Yeah. You know, you can always retcon it in the next session or say, right, okay, guys, I screwed that up last time. This is what happened. We're not going to do that again, but we'll just carry on and it won't matter. But in terms of systems to get into, there's a lot.
D&D presents an easy solution because there's just so much there, and you can mine like 30 years worth of content that's there. You know, it's actually amazingly easy to convert an adventure that was written in the 80s into the current system. You just, you know, replace the monsters, grind off some other serial numbers kind of thing, and off you go. It is though. I mean, I've done it. I've looked at really old adventures and just I've converted one on the fly. There was one which I was making something up more or less as you were playing it, and I quickly got the map uploaded onto Roll20, 10 minutes before we started. And I was putting monsters in. And the monsters, I was just, because I didn't have time to plug, because we're using Roll20 and you've got to plug the monster stats in to make it work really well. I was just relying on monsters that were already in my repertoire rather than from going the ones that were in the adventure. I was just going, right, okay, it makes sense to have one of these in. Let's do one of these. But that was playing by the skin of my teeth that night, I tell you.
Were we involved by chance?
Yes, it was your group, yeah.
Who else would it have been, Andy? It's not going to be the ones that play by the rules, would it?
You're the only group that would turn left when right was the obvious option.
Go right, go right, go right now. We're going left.
And as for other systems, it's quite hard. I mean, the problem is, regardless of which system you're going to play, the GM's got to do some work. The GM or DM or keeper or storyteller or whatever the name is for that system has got to sit down and has got to learn those rules. Maybe not off by heart, but has to at least familiarise themselves with them pretty much. And has to at least familiarise themselves with the adventure. And it's easy to over prepare for the adventure side. And there's a lot of people say you should actually try and improvise, but, as you just said, that can be more trouble than it's worth sometimes. But yeah, that GM does have to put some things up front. I'm just trying to think what would be a perfect introduction system from what we've played.
Alien.
So here's the thing for me, right? Is I'm minded to say the system don't matter. It really doesn't. Everyone's capable of learning a system, no matter how simple or complex it is. It's what you said earlier for me. You've got to be interested in the game. And if you can pick a setting where you can find a hook into, it'll make the game easier to play, no matter what the system is. Take Alien, for example, brand new system. We all fired through that because we were able to associate with the context. We were able to not worry about player backstories and all that stuff. It could have been any system in the world. It could have been super hard, and it would just taken us a few extra sessions to learn it. But if Heart, I hate to bring it up, was something we didn't get on because we couldn't get on with the story. The system was not the problem. It was just we just didn't get on with the story.
Or the setting, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, when I ran the intro to D&D for a couple of my friends, they were really keen on playing. But I mean, ultimately, they didn't get on with it because I don't think they were prepared or wanted the level of admin. Now, Steve's mentioned that there is a lot of onus on the players, and I think that wasn't something they really wanted from the RPG. I think they wanted something that was a lot lighter, that's easier to just run through.
Which I think why D&D is an issue sometimes as a starter RPG, because it does, as you said, there's a lot of admin for the players to keep on top of. We haven't played it yet, but I flicked through the rulebook and I know it's you've ordered, Andy. Tales from the Loop is an interesting starter one because it's running on the same system as Alien has, which is the Mutant Year Zero system. So it's a really simple dice pool, but of all the games I've seen in that system, it's one of the lighter rule sets. And because it basically just says, right, get down to doing your Goonies, Stranger Things style 80s adventure and just have fun with it and not worry too much about some of these things.
Yes. And rather than... I haven't read much on Tales from the Loop. I'm just waiting for it to turn up so I can just go hog wild on it. But I do get the impression that instead of magic in that, you have... because of cyclotron, and you sort of hand wave it that way instead, weird shit because physics, which is fun, and it's set in the 80s, so obviously very nostalgic for us. But again, I think it's probably fair to say that anything from the Free League systems that we've played would be a reasonable starting point because they aren't too heavy on the admin. They're quite creative. And you said in the past, Sid, one of the greatest things that we found about a lot of the games we've played is accessibility and just being able to dive right into the universe and have it, mean something. You can kind of picture what you're facing, whereas I think that's another thing we struggled with Heart. It was a bit too abstract.
Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit on what I said because I'm just taking on board what you said there. And actually, I think the cinematic stuff through the Free League games, that is probably a very easy way into a game, actually. So an easiest system. It's a very friendly way in. It's 3 acts. It's not weeks and weeks of commitment, potentially. It's half a dozen hours. You don't like it, you bail out, you've not lost a lot.
That's very true. I mean, even the starter sets in D&D, which are small adventures, like 1 to 5, levels 1 to 5 or 6, they still take 10 weeks, or at least they would under our play regime, which is still a lot of commitment. Whereas, yeah, you're right, Sid, that we got through one of the Alien ones in, 4 weeks? 4 sessions, 5 sessions, something like that.
A weird one, which rules-wise it's hard to kind of recommend sometimes, but I think Call of Cthulhu is a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's quite rules-heavy from the GM's point of view, but I'm adamant you can play that game without telling players the rules, or at least unveil the rules as you play. Because it's quite grounded. You haven't got superpowers or special abilities. You've just got skills, and it's easy to see. Like, oh, I've got a good percentage in library use, which means I'm good at finding stuff. I've got a good percentage in handguns, which means I'm good at shooting things.
The Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah. You don't believe how important that is in Call of Cthulhu. But instead, there's a really nice little starter box set actually, which includes all the basic rules and the cool adventures. And what they've done is they've done that system of some of the adventure books that comes afterwards, modules, don't need the main rule book. You can play them with the starter set. And I said there's some complexities with the rules that the GM needs to learn, but again, you could play a session of that. I mean, because people might go mad or die horribly, but you don't. It's not a system built on a massive campaign. Although massive campaigns are available, it's not out of the box like D&D. D&D is assumed you'll play for 5 or 6 levels, kind of thing, before you think.
Well, here's the question then: is the problem with D&D? I don't want to blame D&D specifically, but is it that people don't see a way out of it, and that's scary?
Right. I'm gonna jump ahead and interrupt you there, Sid. Actually,
yeah, go for it.
Because Derek's got an interesting question, which I think actually leads into what we're going to discuss.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is, Derek asks, do you think that the current trend in RPGs for just cranking out a based on D&D 5e game, rather than making a system that is designed to fit the theme, setting, and mechanics, is ultimately harmful or healthy for the RPG hobby?
That's a good question.
There's a bit of meat on that in there.
It is. Something to chew on.
DL. I can see his point. I mean, I suppose what you were asking there, Sid, was, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically, people see D&D as safe. They know it well, they've played it a lot, and
but also it's an oil
tanker.
tanker. It's a behemoth of a thing.
Yeah.
It's all of its good stuff can be intimidating if you're brand new.
True. Because there's a lot out there.
There's a lot out there, and there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of arguments about this bit, that bit. Which book should I buy? Should I buy flipping Xanathar? Should I buy the Player's Handbook? Should I not bother with Xanathars and skip to Tasha's? Do you know what? I don't give a I just want one book. I want to get going.
Do what I do. Buy them all. Problem goes away.
Yeah, okay. That is an approach. But if you don't know that you like the system, committing north of a couple £100 on a game, that's a huge chunk of change.
It is, yeah.
Whereas you could spend 20 quid, 30 quid on Forbidden Lands, taking another opposite end of the coin example, and it's all right. That's not a lot of money. You get into it, you get the full rule book, you got the Player's Handbook, you're ready to go. You've got nice maps, you've got whatever else in the box with it. You're good to go. So I think D&D, yeah.
See, but is it harmful or healthy to the RPG hobby?
I don't think it's harmful.
It can be quite frustrating. I mean, me and Adam, one of our friends, had a discussion a few months back, actually, because Mantic announced they were going to do a Hellboy RPG. Mm-hmm. And that was like, oh, that'd be quite cool. Make a member of that team. Make all your weird mutant powers, and off you go. I can see that. I can see running that. Because they're just individual investigations as they go hunt down monsters of the week or whatever. And then they announced it was a 5th edition rule set.
Oh,
and you kind of went, that's a weird match.
Yeah.
How do you fit levels and dungeon crawling designed game to match Hellboy?
Because I would say that would probably suit either the Alien sort of Free League system or the Call of Cthulhu one, because whilst you level, it's not really a leveling, it's more of a tuning.
Yeah.
Or maybe the D20 system from some sort of Star Trek or something like that, where you don't level at all, you can just kind of change your stats a little bit. You drop one and increase the other as you go along. Because superheroes don't really, unless you're Thor, you don't really level up. And on the Marvel ones, they evolve personally, but they don't really change in power or anything like that much. Unless you get a new suit from Tony Stark or something. But you know what I mean. You get your powers, you're good at that, and that's it. They work better as a team, and of course, everyone, they have a bit of fisticuffs, and that's it. Whereas in D&D, the whole thing is that you get more powerful as you go through the game, which doesn't really, as you say, Steve, doesn't really suit the superhero genre, I would say. He says, playing in a kind of campaign where they level up to become better to take on a god. But that's a different story.
I don't think it's harmful. I don't think it's healthy. I think it's lazy. Personally.
Yeah.
I any debate, anything that incites conversation about a system, about a game is going to be good for it, one way or another. But it is a lazy approach. You're banking on people that it's a huge fan base, there's a huge bunch of commitment in that system. it's easy for people to go and spend another 30, 40 quid on a book and crack on to the system they already know. It's comfort zone stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
it's a shame. That's what I think it is. I mean, because I don't think... I mean, let's be fair. I love D&D, but I'm starting to see the faults with it. I'm starting to see where it doesn't do things very well. And I'm also starting to see it's a combat system. 90% of the rules in that book are what you do in a fight, which means basically D&D is just when's the next fight, because that's when I get to do my cool stuff.
Yes.
Which can be a bit frustrating, I think. It can feel a little bit samey. And it can even feel samey as a GM, because it's like, all right, okay, to make this level interesting, I'm going to have to put some monsters in front of you, which means there's a fight, okay? And
you get most of your XP by killing monsters, so yeah, I can see what you mean. Whereas, whilst you can roleplay, and we do, yeah, you're right, the meat of the game is definitely hitting things with sticks, various colours and flavours.
I wonder if we've changed.
I think we have. I think what's happened is we played D&D and got into role-playing, and at the beginning we played it mechanically, and then what's happened is as you said, we've role-played more and more and more as we went on, and we've wanted that more. We wanted something else outside of just, here's a combat grid with some miniatures, which, as I said, I'm not saying D&D doesn't do that, but it's not a system set up to do that.
It's interesting because Andy asked me a question the other day, is as much as I bemoan it and grumpy about it, why do I still play it? Because it's... and it's a very legitimate and fair question. And the answer is simple. Because it is fun. Yeah. It is fun. It is nice to play. But it's no longer the only thing to play. Yeah.
And I've got to admit, I really like running their campaigns. I know there are faults with their campaigns, but I really like running them. I like this whole grand, this grand scheme of what it is. It's hundreds of hours of gameplay. And I've got to admit, I've been looking at the last one and thinking, do I try and convert this into another system?
Ooh.
Do I kind of extract what's interesting out of this and take it out of D&D? Or do I run it as written?
I mean, this is going to go down a rabbit hole we probably don't have time to go on, but I think one of the biggest issues with the current D&D is a lot of the stories as written. I think picking and choosing some elements of different campaigns and sort of putting them together makes it more interesting, because a lot of the campaigns I've run so far have got big problems. And I mean, you've admitted yourself, even with Storm King's Thunder and a few others that you've gone through as well, there are bits of each of these that are either really badly written, very unclear, could be more interesting, etc., etc., etc. So the problem with doing that is you need to be a fairly experienced DM to appreciate what are the good bits, what are the bad bits, what will work well, how to put it all together. So definitely not for the newbie. But
this is a shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, I think that's enough RPG chat.
Yes.
Let's talk about something else, something important. One of Craig's next questions is, let's talk about beer and board game pairings. Now, I like the cut of this jib. What is your go-to gaming beverage? Clearly, Andy can't be trusted with a full pint, so perhaps a cocktail would be better. You're damn right, Craig. I do like it. I do like a mojito. I am quite weak for mojitos.
Ooh.
What is your game? See, I find that a nice single malt goes well with the Call of Cthulhu game, because it seems more civilized.
Yeah, okay, I can see that, yeah.
Nice bit of crystal.
Exactly. 1920s, 1930s, nice...
Big cigar on the side, smoky room.
Exactly. Down the old
leather.
speakeasy.
Well, then therefore that goes with all the Arkham Horror games then, because,
Exactly, yes.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Single malt and a crystal glass, as you said, yeah.
I reckon a cocktail suits anything Star Wars-y based.
Bright colours.
The brighter the colour, the better you are. That's where you are.
Some blue milk.
Blue milk. Blue milk. Pink stuff. Green stuff with umbrellas.
Flashing lights in it.
That's it.
No, I think what you need to do is you need to consider your length of your game as well. So if you're playing some, Fantasy Flight Games Epic, which is going to take you 4 hours, you don't want to be hitting there with like a 7%, 8% stout at the beginning. You want a nice, good session beer,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Swedish light beers would be very suitable to that. 2.5% keeps you going. Tastes better than water.
2.5%?
Oh, mate,
That's practically shandy.
It's the future.
That's because we're getting older. We can't take it anymore. That's the problem.
One of them with your lunch is far better than a tin of fizzy pop.
It takes the edge off the afternoon, doesn't it?
It really does.
See, I never had this problem because I always used to have to drive back from Worcester, because we used to go game in Worcester in the evening.
Oh.
And like, I would say 9 times out of 10, I would drive back. So I'd have one beer, as soon as I got there, and then soft drinks the rest of the night. But I remember, like, every so often you'd drive me, or I'd get the train because I had to get the train because car or something like that. And I remember thinking, like 4 pints into a game, and I'm like going, I can't understand this bloody Euro. I don't know what the hell's going on here. How do I get points again?
Yeah, that'll be the 7%ers the 7% stouts you're on there, Steve.
Yeah.
He's singing on the way home. Half asleep in the passenger seat. Yeah. Steve, it's Tuesday. I don't care.
We've had a question from Budge Wilson, who is asking us, do you think you chaps, I like use the word chaps, it's very, very pleasing. Do you think you chaps will do a playthrough of you playing Alien, a la Champions or Masters, or is it a right faff?
Now, Steve did actually answer this directly. But
I thought I'd add it onto the podcast anyway.
For the benefit of everybody else, even though I've just said we're not doing any more RPG chat.
Well, this is actually an interesting one because we're currently organising at least 2 more board game playthroughs online. Because we are hopefully going to be playing another session of Agamonia with Paul, so we do session 2 of that. We still have planned the Venice rematch.
Oh, yes, because the technology kind of broke, didn't it?
Yeah, so we were supposed to be doing a game session of Venice with Braincrack Games during the UK Games Expo. So we promised we're going to do that again at some point. So that'll be streaming us playing Tabletop Simulator for that. And I've just had a couple more requests for some other things of some interesting games. There's potential for us. I don't know whether we're going to be running that one or someone else's, but there's potential for us doing some board game stuff in the future. As for doing RPGs, now one of the problems we had is that John, being the technical wizard he is, went hog wild on this and worked out how to stream it. He worked out how to set up like frames in OBS to get like the picture frame system and captures and things like that. And he even apparently needed to buy himself a new PC to do all this. So I think the whole thing was just an excuse for him to buy a new PC anyway. So, unfortunately, with Sammy being born, John's been kind of away from all that, so we've lost that technical know-how. I'm still waiting for my bloody fibre to be installed, where hopefully it means after that I'm able to do something. But it all depends if there's a demand for it. Now, I wasn't quite sure if there was a demand for it and in what format. Because what we did last time is we did D&D sessions, which we broadcast on Twitch, and then we could spit that out to YouTube. Now, I'm going to tell you now, next to nobody watched it on Twitch. I mean, the viewing figures were like 3, and I think 2 of them were me and John checking the feed was working.
Well, even I didn't watch that shit. And I was in it.
And we had a little bit of traffic on the YouTube thing, but we were doing D&D, so we were doing these massively long 2-year campaigns, which I don't think were the best thing for putting out there. I also had some people actually contact us or run into us in conventions and say, is there any chance you can do it on a different format other than YouTube? Because I'd like to listen to it when I'm at work or in the car, which you can't do if it's on YouTube, because he says, work blocks YouTube and I can't put it on my phone kind of thing. So we did try and do Alien, but the technology failed us at the last minute. We quite literally recorded 5 sessions of Alien, and the 5th session is the session it didn't record.
I think my mic broke or something, didn't it? It started producing, or either that or I forgot to press record, one of the two.
In either way, the final session, which was the best session, was the one we didn't manage to capture. So I kind of would like to, but it's a lot more hard work than it looks. It's like most of these things. I mean, the only reason we've got good at doing this podcast now is we've been doing it 3-4 bloody years. So we've got the practice in and we've learned all the mistakes. And it's like I've tried to do video reviews and I'm still learning the mistakes there. This is the same thing. I'm at the point where I know some of the basics but don't know enough to make it work right every time. I mean, are you two interested? I mean, I'm having a discussion, which is actually should be an offline discussion, but are you two interested?
I would be happy
like
to
that?
do it. And to be honest, I could probably run it from my PC if we wanted to, because I've got a decent enough internet connection and I've got enough horsepower in this thing to do it. So, in fact, twice the graphical horsepower of John's computer, in fact. So if we wanted to, I have the technology. Once you've got your fibre, I think you will have it, Steve. So we could do it. And to be honest, all I need to do is sit down and set up OBS like John did. I don't think it's that hard. It's just John has the motivation to actually sit down for 4 hours and do it.
I think it'd be fun, but I do think it's really important to get the right group and the right length of session. Because I've dipped into a few YouTube videos and playthroughs, and I think there's a lot we can learn from what other people are doing. And I think you're right, Steve. The D&D ones they're quite hard to dip in and out of. Whereas if you've got a couple of 3-hour sessions of an Alien playthrough, it's easier to dip in. It's easier to listen to in the background while you're cooking your tea or whatever, and it's quite good fun to see other people play a game that you've played. That's generally what I've been watching.
See, I think Blades in the Dark could do quite well for that because it's quite narrative. You could listen to it in the background and it'd probably make a lot of sense, assuming the players are halfway decent at telling a story and not dropping cabinets on their head.
I was thinking the best way of doing it is doing shorter things rather than going back to D&D, which takes an infinite amount of time. Maybe we mentioned the Alien Colonial Marines missions. Maybe one of them missions, just one mission, is a thing to do. Not do the entire 5-mission campaign, but just record one mission from beginning to end and see how we go from there. Or maybe we do one adventure site of Forbidden Lands.
I think almost like a 3-hour stint max. One video, see how it goes. So you get some playthrough.
Let's see if we can set something up for the new year then. They are gauntlet thrown down.
I suppose the advantage of lockdown is we have now all kitted out to the nines with decent webcams, decent mics, decent fibre. Apart from you, Steve.
He's laying the side down there. Dry out the string, Tudor. Come on.
But I think that is a big part of it as well. I think the quality of the kit we're using will make a difference, just in terms of quality of it and listening to it and stuff like that.
James Harker has asked a couple of questions. They're both related, and it's all to do with basically being stuck inside and not being able to go and play any games with anybody. Given that everything has happened this year, lasts for the foreseeable, we will have some sort of restrictions in place with regards to gathering in groups. How do you think board gaming will change, if at all? And also related, do you think more games should or could be developed with a remote play element? We've had some similar questions. I have, and actually Laura has with some of her friends as well, about can you recommend games that you can play over things like Zoom or remotely? Now, I think we answered that in the last podcast, or the podcast before anyway.
No, it was the last one.
What's the last one?
Last podcast.
Getting old. Where it's extremely difficult to play a lot of regular board games that have things like decks of cards, like shared decks of cards. Big no-no, because you couldn't unless somebody control those decks. But if somebody draws a card and you're not allowed to show it to anybody, it's a non-starter. So
I've got a prediction here for you. Then
go on. Then
we're going to see loads of these games
next year and the year after.
Too late.
Yeah.
Year after.
Yeah.
Not next year. The year after.
Yeah.
Because the thing about board games take a long time to develop. You see people developing these board games and they're working on them for years. It sounds. I think even like someone like David Turtsey, which we mentioned a lot, he's designing stuff that's due out in 2 years' time. I reckon you're going to see an upsurge in these games that can be played remotely coming out after the vaccines come out and we're not gaming remotely anymore.
That said, perhaps if you look at it, we were discussing before we started about the way our jobs have changed. The people are using online conferencing a lot more and online technology more. Maybe people have started to look into things like Tabletopia and are now more agreeable to playing games over Zoom or Skype or whatever other platforms are available. And maybe it is a more feasible way. Like, I mean, how often do we actually see each other physically?
I think it's
none at the
Well,
moment.
I know, but I mean, even when we were allowed to roam free, we still never got. We did it was once a month, if that. We ever saw each other physically to play a game. So having the option to play remotely might be useful. I take your point, Steve. I think you're probably right that it's too little, too late. In 2 years' time.
But also, it needs to be an accessible technology, I think. That's my concern about this, is if it relies on Zoom and things like that, you need a computer, you need a webcam, you need a little tablet.
Yeah, that's true.
It needs to be some kind of fusion media thing where you've got a tablet for your deck of cards and then you've got a big TV or something for your board. And it's not going to be straightforward.
Or cheap.
Or cheap, yeah.
And it'll be potentially maybe app-driven.
When we are released, maybe we'll start wanting to see each other more because you never know when it'll happen again.
That's very true.
But, and also, if you've spent 7 hours in front of your webcam, TV, on Zoom meetings with offices and work, do you really want to sit there for another 4 hours doing your hobby? I'm not so sure.
I've been playing quite a lot of FIFA.
Yeah, no, I'm not so sure either.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Yeah, because I found annoyingly, I got a brand new PC just before lockdown started. We ordered it before there was any sign of this damn thing. So I was really excited about doing loads of things on the PC. I was going to do some video editing. I was going to do music creation. I was going to play loads of these games. And now I'm sitting in front of this all day working. I get to 4:30 and I'm like, I don't want to sit here anymore. I want to get and see a different room in the house.
See, I don't mind. Laura's been telling me off for spending too much time in front of the computer recently because, as you've put it in the past, Steve, I'm a terminal nerd. And, it's like, right, I've finished my work now. Right, computer games, off we go. And I don't mind. But, I've always been like that. So I guess it depends on the person. But it's a fair point. Andy, do you want to come and play a board game with 4 of your mates? Yeah, totally I do. It wins, quite often because the social aspect, there's the interaction, the screwing your mates over and getting a laugh out of it. That wins every time.
Craig Turner has a couple of quick fire questions to finish us off. Well, one quick fire and then they slowly get less quick fire. So, first question, foam core or wooden insert?
Baggies.
I've got rid. Well, I've only got foam core inserts because I bought the folded space inserts for a few of my games. I got to admit, I do love them, but they seem to have gone up in price. I've not bought any wooden inserts because I think they're too expensive.
Yeah.
I have this thing where blinging out the game costs more than the game itself, and inserts is one of those things. I remember when I first got Dominion, and this is going back a few years now, because I think it's now double the price what I bought it for. And I thought to myself, do I buy some sleeves? Because it's one of my first games I bought, and it's a deck builder, so you're shuffling cards all the time. It was going to be more expensive to sleeve the game than it was to buy a new copy of the game.
Wow.
So I thought, no.
Bollocks to that,
I don't see the point.
Absolutely.
And I think some of these games, it's easy to fall down that trap. I've only got the foam inserts because they're cheap. Because I look at the price of those broken token wooden inserts and go,
they are pricey. I've made a foam core insert. I got some, A3 sort of foam core things from Amazon for £8 or something that wasn't expensive. And I built an insert for, Between Two Cities, just because it was easy because they're all square and they're all the same shape. And that was fine. But I'm not sure I could be arsed doing it for anything else. As I say, I just take the insert out and use baggies. It's easier.
Here's a question for you. How does 3D printing change the world of inserts going forward? Because once you've got your 3D picture, print it out. Job's a good one.
The only thing I would say from that is the boxes for board games are usually bigger than most home 3D printer beds.
True.
So you'd have to build several different sections and then plug them all in afterwards. But you're right, Sid. It's an option.
It can be done. I mean, I've seen a few examples of it, actually, for simpler games and the smaller games, as Steve says, because otherwise it starts getting big. And I mean, you couldn't do it for Gloomhaven or something like that. But unless you had a lot of... You might as well just use Lego at that point.
That's an
I've seen
idea.
someone
Let's
use
do
Lego.
that.
I've seen someone use Lego. That's
Really
awesome.
So I think if I had to choose, I'd go foam core, but I just use baggies.
What is the oldest game in your collection?
Now, is that the game I've owned the longest, or is that physically how old the game is?
Well, for me, it's both the same game.
Okay, which is?
Second edition Blood Bowl, which is the one with the polystyrene pitch. I think it's 1988.
Wow, okay.
I think.
See, if you'd have asked me 4 years ago, I'd probably say something like the original first edition of Space Hulk. But I have an older game, and it is, hilariously enough, Monopoly. But it's not like a modern version of it. It's actually the version that we used to play with my family when I was younger, and it's like a set from like the 60s or something. It's really old. It's got like proper metal pieces. I remember that, Steve. He's showing me Blood Bowl. I
was right. 1988.
Wow. See, I had the version of that did, and it was just like the open out board. It might have been the third edition. Can't remember.
That's the third edition, yeah.
Came in the 90s, I guess.
This is the one with the polystyrene pitch.
Wow. But yeah, we've got, downstairs in my kind of hidden away in the corner so nobody sees it kind of pile, I've got things like Go for Broke, Game of Life, this really old version of Monopoly, like the box, is all falling apart, all the flaps of, like, you have to hold it together with sellotape, all that sort of stuff. And that's I think that game's older than I am.
Last question. Most played game. Now, thankfully, I've got an app for this.
As do I, actually, although I only started tracking them at the start of 2020, so most of my plays I've gone unrecorded. I think it's probably going to have to be something like either Arkham Horror 3rd edition, Solken, or...
You reckon that's your most played game?
I'd like it to be. I don't think it is. We've played a lot of Arkham Horror recently. What else have I played a lot? I played quite a lot of Deep Madness and Too Many Bones. Go on. What is actually my... Well, in terms of number of plays or hours played.
See, I do number of plays because you play the full game. So I've been logging all games I've been playing.
Right.
So, funnily enough, my most played game ever is Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's even Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition because we played that every week for 3 years, more or less. So that's unsurprising. Actual board games, my most played game is Codenames.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Because it's a party game, so we used to play that like 4 or 5 games at the end of an evening. Other than that, actual real games, my most played games are actually X-Wing and Doomtown Reloaded, which I'm really quite surprised at.
Interesting.
So Doomtown Reloaded is a card game. So what I was doing is I was playing with a guy a couple of doors down from me in Malvern, me and him were just trying out different decks. So I'd just pop over, play for a couple of hours, and then come home kind of thing. I didn't realise I'd racked up so many games of that.
This year, because I only started, let's say, recording it, it's actually Architects of the West Kingdom. 6 plays this year. Followed by Paladins, followed by Raiders of the North Sea. So it looks like Garphill are doing quite well out of me at the moment. But yes, then the Godfather, then Solken. So yes, I have played Solken quite a bit.
So thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed listening to us, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice and share us with your friends. You can chat to us on Twitter. We're at Polyhedron C as a group. I am at Wahofflemadenga.
I am at Sonic H. John is at John_Cage. And we have Mr. Gill, I think he's actually on Twitter these days.
Oh, yeah, but I've got to have a word with my username. We'll sort that out, and then we'll make it more friendly.
So just me and Steve then at the moment.
I didn't pick it thinking I'd have to tell anyone it. Okay, that's all.
Oh no, have you gone the teenage lad route and made it something stupid, vulgar, and obscene?
It's not really broadcastable, in my opinion.
Oh dear. We are also on Facebook. And we have a Board Game Geek Guild number 2726, which Steve sporadically posts content to there, assuming that either him or I have bothered our arse creating some.
which I've got a shout out to make, actually. I'm going to put a post on Facebook, and I'm going to probably put the post on the Board Game Geek Guild. Next episode is going to be our best of 2020. We're going to salvage something from this burning heap.
It'll be a 10-minute podcast then, won't it?
Yeah, exactly. So what we want is a listener's best of section. So we want the listener's game of the year. So let us know what your best game of 2020 has been. It doesn't necessarily have to be a game that's came out this year. We always used to say, like, try and stick to games that came out this year, but I think 2020, just whatever makes you feel happy at this point. Whatever sparks joy. So, we have been Polyhedron Collider. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back soon. Happy gaming.
Bye.
Cheerio.